I was looking through EDH Rec and I could not believe the disrespect for my boy Menomenom. Only 380 decks is sad, folks. It's real sad. So I gotta do my part by sharing his gift to the world one counter at a time. I'm making a budget deck, a bracket 2 deck, but I'll be sharing some higher power upgrades as well as other commanders where Menomenom will go hard in the 99. Let's monkey around. The Uthros Exile is 1 blue and red for a legendary jellyfish advisor that's a flying 1/3. His ability triggers whenever an artifact you control enters, letting you put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. A few things to note here. This is any artifact, not any non-token artifact, which is a considerable boost in power. The counter can go on any creature, including Menomenom, so you're never losing out on that counter value. And the counter can go on any creature, which opens the door to political wheeling and dealing. That last one won't have a consistent impact, but I want you to remember that your words can be just as powerful as any spell. So don't be afraid to throw a deal out there. Now let's get into the game plan. It's obviously an artifact deck, but more specifically, the goal is to create artifact creature tokens. Utilizing the new spell, Pinnacle Emissary, was a motivator for going in this direction. This one, a blue and a red, 3/3 artifact creature robot with a warp cost of 1 Izzet mana, creates a 1/1 colorless drone artifact creature token with flying whenever you cast an artifact spell. For the record, you're going to have a lot of those. Also, those drones can only block flying creatures. Saheeli Sublime Artificer, Third Path Iconoclast, and Sai Master Thopterist likewise produce an influx of artifact creature tokens. Efficient Construction does this in enchantment form, and Stridehanger Automaton does this in response to artifact tokens being made. It's on the pricey end for a budget deck, but I'd take any opportunity to share this beauty. Now come a little closer, because the real secret tech for this category is Fairy Artisans. This 3 and a blue flying 2/2 has a trigger that activates whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control. When that happens, you create a token copy of that creature as well, but it's a token artifact copy. So those mass artifact token makers are the first major category and premium cards you're looking for in your opening hand. But there are other token makers. Animation Module and Retrofitter Foundry are the 1 mana options, and I'll talk more about the module later, so let's talk Retrofitter. This card feels amazing in any deck that expects to have Thopters on the battlefield, thanks to that final ability. Block a creature with a Thopter and before damage, sacrifice it for a 4/4 construct. Save yourself the pain, a creature enters, an artifact enters, and if you've got enough mana, you can untap the Foundry to repeat the process. Loyal Apprentice and Thopter Engineer are a couple more ways to get Thopters. The Apprentice accrues value so long as the creature and your commander remain on the battlefield together. The Engineer, giving artifact creatures you control haste, is the real upside for her. Forensic Gadgeteer will make a clue token every time you cast an artifact spell, and the second ability helps crack those clues. It can go infinite, but not in this construction of the deck. Big Score, offering card advantage and ramp and artifacts, is perfect for the deck. And how about Season of Weaving? Each mode of this 4 and 2 blue sorcery cleanly synergizes with every aspect of the deck. Drawing cards is good. Making token copies of artifacts or creatures has enormous upside that you should keep in mind when we get to the thick section of the video. And returning each non-land and non-token permanent to its owner's hand can straight up win you the game. Now here are Weapons Manufacturing and Devastating Onslaught. Gotta show Edge of Eternities a little more love, you know? Weapons Manufacturing turns your board into a minefield by creating munitions. These are colorless artifact tokens that deal 2 damage to any target when the token leaves the battlefield. Not when they're sacrificed or destroyed, but leaves the battlefield. Devastating Onslaught is the kind of card destined for Commander, so I needed to oblige. You pay XX and a red to create X token copies of a target artifact or creature you control, giving them haste and sacrificing them at the beginning of the next end step. Of course, the best things to target will be your big boys, so without further ado, Depth Shaker Titan and Thundering Raiju will kick us off. The Titan is a new spell from the Counterintelligence precon that didn't quite fit in there due to the lack of token spam. This deck, however, spams tokens. When it enters, any number of target non-creature artifacts you control become 3/3 artifact creatures that will be sacrificed at the beginning of the next end step. But also, each artifact creature you control has melee, trample, and haste. Even without that first ability, the melee being applied to all your token artifact creatures will add overwhelming power to your attackers. Thundering Raiju may have taken you by surprise. It's a 2 and 2 red 3/3 spirit with haste, and an ability that triggers when the creature attacks. First, you put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control, and then Thundering Raiju deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of modified creatures you control other than the Raiju. Counters on creatures count as a modification, so spread out that counter love and profit. Kappa Cannoneer grows as more artifacts enter, has the seriously high ward of 4 generic mana, and easily gains the unblockable status. Threefold Thunderhawk has 4 artifact creatures entering when it comes down, and at least 3 more for every attack. Junkwinder and Furnace Hellkite are the affinity enjoyers of this thick boy category. Junkwinder has affinity for tokens and stuns creatures when subsequent tokens enter. Furnace Hellkite has the more traditional affinity for artifacts. It's often going to be a 2 red 5/5 flyer that can pump itself up with that single red ability. Also, it looks cool, and bracket 2 is the right place for that being a consideration. So at this point, we're spamming tokens. We've got big top end to take advantage of that one way or another, but there is a final piece we've only brushed upon so far. It's time to burn, baby, burn. Weapons manufacturing and Thundering Raiju are a good start, but the exciting new creature, Weftstalker Ardent, will bring us to full speed. It deals 1 damage to each opponent whenever another creature or artifact you control enters. It also has the very low single red warp mana cost. Impact Tremors, Reckless Fireweaver, and Molten Gatekeeper are the other options in this burn category, with the Gatekeeper able to bring itself back from the graveyard for a single red. Now that we've covered how you can expect to win games with the deck, let's talk about the glue that holds it all together. And that starts with card advantage. Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor, because of course. Idol of Oblivion and Tezzeret's Gambit, because of course. And then we have Marketback Walker, which is a great place to put counters because it dies into an explosion of drawn cards. Emery Lurker of the Lock unlocks your graveyard. Demand Answers is a crazy popular card for good reason, letting you substitute a discard for the sacrifice of an artifact. Staff of Completion taxes your life pretty heavily to proliferate or draw cards, but having access to those options as well as ramp makes it well worth packing in the 99. Bident of Thassa is in here because of course, and then 2 new spells, Uthros Research Craft and Cerebral Download. The Research Craft is a spacecraft that will let you draw a card whenever you cast an artifact spell when it's been stationed up to 3, and I really want to give Cerebral Download a shot. An instant speed 5 mana draw 3 is a fine rate, but the upside of digging pretty deep with the Surveil can turn this into a semi-tutor, kind of. If anyone has seen this in action yet, let me know your thoughts in the comments. In the utility space, there are 2 sleeper picks, Omarthus Ghostfire Initiate and Rapid Augmenter. Omarthus is cast for XX, entering with X +1/+1 counters on it. But then, whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on another colorless creature, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Omarthus. He's been known to grow quite large for this reason. And then when he dies, you go wide, manifesting cards from the top of your library equal to the number of counters on the creature. Rapid Augmenter is an otter, which is a good start. For real though, this guy was printed for the Family Matters precon back in Bloomborough that synergized around things with 1 power. The Augmenter cares specifically about creatures with a base power of 1, giving them haste until the end of the turn. Even more, when a creature enters that wasn't cast, whether it was a token or manifested, you put a +1/+1 counter on Rapid Augmenter and it can't be blocked blocked this turn. This is a sneaky banger that will quickly become far more conspicuous. Dousing Device is another haste enabler, but also transforms into a land that can boost the power of a creature you control at sorcery speed by the number of artifacts you control. At this point, I'm sure you know that's going to be a lot. I want to specifically call out Delete as interaction that can burn your opponents out, but also shred through non-artifact creatures. And finally, it's time to return to Animation Module. This artifact, in conjunction with Crystalline Crawler and your commander on the battlefield, is an infinite combo. If you spend any color of mana to cast Crystalline Crawler, or put a +1/+1 counter on it from Menomenom, that'll trigger the animation module. If you can afford the 1 generic mana, which you can by removing a counter from Crystalline Crawler, you can create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. That servo, being an artifact, will trigger Menomenom, letting you put a +1/+1 counter back on the Crystalline Crawler. That re-triggers animation module for you to repeat until you have infinite 1/1 servos and infinite enter triggers. The ideal is to have a haste enabler out there to close the game out straight away, or a burn agent to do the same. This is a 3-card, 11 mana combo, so I feel good about it being in bracket 2. If you're not, then take it out, or continue the upgrade to bracket 3 and beyond. And I guess it's time to talk about that.
There's coldness there, there's karma. There's heat, there's flames, there's lava. Volcanic, what can we do? It gets manic. I know what got powers.
For the mana base, other than the very powerful fetch lands and Steam Vent and Volcanic Island, if you're very fancy, I'm looking at Otawara Soaring City, Uthros, Titanic God Core, and Fountain Port. Otawara is removal on a land, which is amazing. Fountain Port turns tokens into drawn cards, makes tokens, makes treasures. Seriously, what's not to like? But then, there's this planet. Uthros is Tolarian Academy, but fair, adding a blue mana for every artifact you control for the cost of a blue mana, and only after it's been stationed to 12. Tutors always improve the consistency of your deck. To get anything, throw a gamble in there for the lulz. For artifacts, Fabricate, Whir of Invention, and Reshape are options that have been available for some time now. But a new one in Edge of Eternities is Scour for Scrap. It's 3 and a blue to put an artifact into hand, which is an okay rate. It's instant speed, which is great, but the best part is that it lets you dig into your graveyard if you need to get back a combo piece that was taken care of before. And let's talk about those combos. Forensic Agiteer, which is already in the deck, teams up with Basalt Monolith to create infinite generic mana due to the cost reduction of untapping the monolith. Use that mana to make infinite tokens with Retrofitter Foundry, pump Walking Ballista and shoot down the entire table, or load up some different ammunition using the rocket launcher. Sensei's Dividing Top, Mystic Forge, and Foundry Inspector is a classic combo that lets you draw your whole deck, but the sacrifice combos are particularly intriguing. Adding an Altar of Dimension to the Menomenom, Animation Module, and Crystalline Crawler loop converts the infinite servo tokens into empty libraries. But better than that is Lesser Masticore. Sacrifice it with an Altar or Goblin Bombardment, and watch it return to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. Have your commander on the battlefield, and put that +1/+1 counter on the Masticore to nullify the counter count, and repeat that process for infinity. For pure value adds, I'm looking at Perforos God of the Forge to speed up that burn clock, Reaver Cleaver to dump out treasure tokens, and Danny Pink that draws you a card whenever 1 or more counters are put on a creature you control, for the first time anyway. Wave Goodbye is killer one-sided interaction, returning each creature without a +1/+1 counter on it back to its owner's hand. I'd also add more cantrippy artifacts to work through my deck faster. Chromatic Star, Ether Spellbomb, and Relic of Progenitus type cards. And that's enough of that. Let's talk Menomenom in the 99. Captain Storm Cosmium Raider does what Menomenom does, but more narrowly targeted to pirates you control. Look at Menomenom as a secondary commander in the 99. Faith Famed Mechanist is an underloved commander that gets up to busted stuff quite easily by giving each non-token creature you control that enters, Fabricate 1. If you don't have your combo set up yet with a persist creature, making that 1/1 servo is a pretty nice alternative. especially when Menominum tacks on that bonus counter. This synergy makes the proliferating option on Kaith all the more potent, and starts diversifying your threats. Marchesa the Black Rose reanimates creatures if they died with at least one +1/+1 counter. The Dethrone ability on her is one way to make that happen, but Menominum is a safer way if you lean into an artifact theme when constructing the deck. Baleful Strix will keep drawing you cards. Thought Monitor will keep drawing you cards. Solemn Simulacrum will do the same and ramp you. And that's just the budget stuff. This is the coolest commander construction for Menominum in the 99 in my opinion. But I want to hear from you. What cards are going in your Menominum decks? Where are you putting this creature, and are you getting enough fiber? Let me know in the comments. If you're looking to dive into the real precons for the Edge of Eternities set, click on the video right over there. Take a moment now to subscribe to the channel, and while you're down there, take a look in the description for a deck list of Menominum Uthros Exile.